Assault and battery. Hosted by Mel and Kelly.
And Mike.
Forget what you know. Forget what you know. Assault and battery.
And welcome back. We're back to Assault and Battery, and probably nobody noticed it because it was so subtle the way I weaved it in. But we made a minor adjustment to the theme song. You probably have to go back
even realize that was you.
It was. I know you couldn't. It was. It was a lot of work to make it that seamless. So
You have the voice of an angel, Kelly.
It was very good.
Hey, so we're back to talk about episode 8 of Better Call Saul, which is called Rico. And wait, I guess we'll get to the end because some of the previews for the following show have me sad. So we'll talk about that at the end. But let's go ahead and talk about this episode. So if you're out there in Twitterland, if you join us in the Hangout, use the hashtag Call Saul. Or use the Q&A in the Google Hangout if you've got questions, comments, whatever. We'd love to hear from you through the duration of the show. And so I guess we should probably introduce ourselves before we get going. Hi, I'm Kelly Thul at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And with me as always is Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter. And now with his new intro, here's Mike.
Thank you. I am Mike at Official Pagan. And I need that as my ringtone.
I had to make sure you guys knew I slid it in there because it was seamless.
You know what? The way it slipped by, I almost didn't notice it. It was a few seconds later. I'm like, wait, did that say "end Mike"?
Yeah, you would have thought I got a hold of Alicia and said, "Hey, could you do that?" But no, that was me. So
all you.
All me, man.
Yep.
Just that.
Can't stop a signal.
It's really amazing. So.
Oh, so I guess we're gonna jump right into Rico, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so this was a really great episode. It opens with a much younger Jimmy pushing the mail cart in HHM, very cheerfully delivering mail to everyone, until he finally ends up in Kim's office, which appears probably like it's in the cornfield. So
it was sort of like a repurposed closet.
Yes. And he hands her an envelope and tells her I can't open it. She's busy, she's got stuff to do, but he tells her I can't open it. And she looks at it, she opens it up, and she reads it very, very deadpan, and then she lays a smacker on him. He passed the bar exam, and he runs off with his letter to Chuck, who this is pre-illness Chuck. He is in his office at HHM, being very important, and Jimmy goes to him with his letter, and at first Chuck thinks this is a joke. And then Jimmy goes and details all of the really, 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 really phenomenally hard work that he put into doing this. We find out that he didn't graduate from high school. I believe he said he got his GED, and he went to community college. And basically, I didn't write down the name of the college. Was it the University of American Samoa?
University of American Samoa.
Yes.
Go Land Crabs.
Go Land Crabs. That was awesome. Go Land Crabs. Basically,
I want a Land Crabs shirt. I don't know about you guys.
I do too. They need to make that because that's going to be awesome. So basically, he took his law school through correspondence courses, and obviously this took years of work on his part to do this, and we find out, he says something along the lines, well, he figured if Kim could do it, then so could he. And then he asked Chuck if, he thought that HHM, he could get a job at HHM with Chuck and Kim. And it's all cute. And Chuck's looking at him and says, well, I'll have to talk to the partners, but I don't see why not. And Chuck is so proud of him, and it's such a sweet moment. And then we cut to the mailroom party that gets crashed by Lord Vader. And he basically saunters in and kicks Kim and the mail guys out. And the door closes, and we can't actually hear what he tells Jimmy, but it's not good news. And then, as if he hasn't done enough, he takes some of Jimmy's cake and walks out of the room, and then throws back over his shoulder, hey, we'll reevaluate in 6 months, and walks away. But not without asking Jimmy if he wants the door open or closed, which Jimmy wants it closed, and I half expected Jimmy to bust out and wreck the room like he's been having a tendency to do, but he does not.
Yeah, I kind of thought we were going to see Jimmy quit the firm at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved how the scene was shot to when Lord Vader came in and began to have his conversation with Jimmy. That it was just, you just hear the sound of the office equipment running, and you watch the two interacting, but it's just like, the Death Star does not have the current cash flow at this time to hire another lawyer.
Yeah.
And
Now, I gotta, not to interrupt Kelly, I'm sorry, but I do have to ask you guys, when he's telling Chuck all this, Chuck seems pretty taken back and pretty surprised by this. Do you think that when Chuck met with Lord Vader, that Chuck really supported him getting a job there?
I'd like to think so.
I don't think he did. So I don't think he fought for it at all. Would be my guess, is that because the one part was it was touching how it was really important. Are you proud of me, Chuck? Because he actually asked him if he was.
And that's exactly what made me think that for a second, that he didn't really fight for him to get that job, because he had to sort of prompt him to tell him he was proud of him.
Yeah, and you saw when he was, hey, I could maybe come work with you, and it wasn't like beaming enthusiasm from Chuck, and I just wonder if it was more him playing out, well, how Vader will never go for this, but yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
I just don't think Chuck went to the mat for him at all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mike, that I think maybe that's some foreshadowing, I am afraid, of what's going to happen. I'm really nervous about how the season's going to end after this episode, but we've only gotten through the opening act, and actually, John McGevna has reminded us that Jimmy passed the bar on the 3rd try. 3rd time's the charm.
Yep, just like losing your virginity, according to Jimmy.
I didn't get that reference, but
yeah, it's Jimmyisms. So
yes.
Go land crabs, and we'll go ahead and jump into Act 1, where we're now Kim is back from the cornfield, back in her original office, and Vader comes in and is like, "Come on, bask in the glory." And it's time for you to. And she's initially kind of reluctant, but she's not putting up much of a fight. And big press conference, lots of attention. This is what Howard wanted all along. Why Kim was probably in as much trouble as she was.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of playing on the TV as Jimmy shows up in Sandpiper. Sandpiper Crossing, I believe. Oh no, he's at nursing home initially, and he's the card fairy. He drops some cards off from somebody who's sleeping and doing some things, and then he makes his way over to Sandpiper Crossing to meet with the bingo winner from last week's episode, who offers him some. She hydroxes him out. So okay, hydrox. Is that? I've never had a hydrox. You guys?
It's a generic Oreo. Just think Oreo.
Oh.
It's
okay, yeah, that was a question that I had, and I didn't have an opportunity to Google it.
Maybe it's a Southern thing. Just think Oreo cookie. It's a cheap Oreo cookie with lots and lots of lard. It's yeah.
Well, there you go.
Is that on the front of the bag with lots and lots of lard?
No, but that's what all the when I was a kid, that's what my grandmother had. She had Hydrox, trays of Hydrox cookies instead of Oreo cookies. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what they are. Just think Oreo cookie.
See, there you go. See, these are the kind of answers you get in the hard-hitting investigative journalism that is a Saul and Battery.
What's a Hydrox?
What's a Hydrox? So we got that answered. We're still a little unclear on the whole 3 times lose your virginity thing, but we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
So then, and we're kind of learning Jimmy's flat rate for wills and a few other things is $140. This lady's a little short on cash. Has $43. Jimmy's being a good guy. He's like, we'll make, give her some money back. We'll make it an even $120. And she says, well, I should have to wait till I get my allowance. And he kind of heads out, but then light bulb goes on, he comes back. And so he starts asking her to explain a little more about an allowance. Do you mean your children give you an allowance? And turns out, no, it's Sandpiper Crossing, and she's got some sort of contract where all of her pension and Social Security goes to them, and they pay for things, they give her an allowance, and they save some money for her. Quite the gig.
Yeah.
And so then Jimmy gathers a number of the residents under this contract and starts going through a little bit more, and there appears to be some problems at this point in time. And he's beginning to notice some things, and he takes it back to Chuck, who we find out, as we talked about, I think last show, the boxes that Jimmy left, most of those have been worked, and Chuck knew that it was it was the Tom Sawyer move. They gave him to paint the fence, but he did all the wills that Jimmy had, but they start going through together. And then it appears that Chuck, and this is where I didn't get it exactly, so I don't know if you guys did. So Chuck seemed to have had some involvement with these contracts, because he was like, did I miss that? Did you guys catch that or not?
I took that as to mean just him going through the documents that Jimmy left there.
Yeah, because that would be part of the wills, going through their finances, perhaps, to do some of the wills. That's how I took it.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
That makes a lot more sense to me now, thanks. Because I was like, Sandpiper Crossing didn't strike me as a HHM client too much. So Chuck missed it. So here's Jimmy, kind of out lawyering Chuck on something a little bit, and so they go through some of those, and then one of the special moments is, so they're trying to figure out what to do, and Chuck encourages Jimmy not to go off half-cocked. Jimmy assures him he's full cock,
which was my favorite line of the episode.
Why am I not surprised?
I kind of had a feeling about that one. Yeah.
And
that's going to work its way into everyday conversation very often.
Oh God. Yep. That's probably a good hashtag T-shirt.
Yeah, we have a couple comments in the Q&A.
My goodness, we certainly do. Yeah. So John McGavin was putting out a plug to say that Hydrox may be cheap, but they're really, really good. So we got an advocate for that. And then from Barry. Mentions that he likes the way the show does audio capture, the pouring of the coffee, the throwing of electronics in the mailbox, where they really sample out, and even on a kind of I think these are real kind of subtle ones that Barry's pointing to, which are really very cool. But even the bigger ones of using the office equipment as background noise when Vader's breaking the bad news to Jimmy. Yeah,
they really do that really well in this show. Thanks for bringing that up, Barry. So, my favorite quote is a little bit later in this act, also. It's not my favorite quote, though.
I'm also not shocked by that. So, uh, Jimmy heads back. At this point in time, Sandpiper's not real interested in him hanging around, and they've apparently have a pretty good bouncer crew there. A couple burly fellows there just waiting for Jimmy.
You know how
And
some of
he
those older people get.
They do. They don't like to take their meds or change their Depends.
Sometimes you got to bust a few heads.
That's right.
That's right. And these are the two guys to do it. They look like highly qualified elderly bouncers.
Yes, they look like actual bouncers instead of orderlies. So.
Yeah, and we've got Jimmy talking about spoliation, and before he mentions he's got he's gotten a little excited through their conversation, and he's got IBS, and he needs to use the restroom, which they begrudgingly let them do. I almost thought the bouncers were going to walk in with him.
Mm-hmm.
And while in the bathroom, he's frantically flipping through a legal pad, gets to the cardboard on the back, starts writing constantly, runs out of room, pulls out some toilet paper, continues to write, and comes out and says, "This is a demand letter," I believe the language he uses,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to stop that shredding right now. And so, what's your quote in this area, Mel?
Well, mine was when the bouncers, the nursing home bouncers, kept him from going in to see Mrs. Landry, and they're holding him back, and he's like, "What, are you making Soylent Green back there?" Because I have to thumbs up any Soylent Green reference, so that was my favorite quote. There were a few good ones in this episode, I have to say.
I think that my favorite part of the episode was actually him in the bathroom writing out the demand letter, but that wasn't really a quote.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how the Declaration of Independence was first drafted as well.
People do think faster on the toilet, they say.
Who says
Kelly,
that?
any input there?
I don't know. People do.
People
say that all the
say
time.
that?
They do some of their best thinking on the toilet. I don't know. I don't know who they are.
I don't know.
They must have really nice bathrooms and really, cushy toilets. Beats me. We're not into that in the South.
I'm just glad Jimmy had a pen because he was improvising a lot, and I didn't want to.
Things could have gotten weird.
See that, so
Yeah.
they definitely could have gotten weird.
Too bad he didn't have some
so they-
118-62 instead of the TP. That was the code for Kleenex. Hello, crickets.
I remember.
Man, I got to take deeper notes.
Thank you, Mike.
I've got some numbers written down for later in the show, but
I probably skipped
not
off
yet.
those.
And neither the surly receptionist lady nor the elder bouncers are impressed, and they toss Jimmy out, and that ends Act 1.
Yes, but he heard shredding. He knew there was shredding going on back there. He could hear it.
Spoliation.
That's right. So Act 2 opens with Mike back in his ticket booth when he gets a phone call. And he has a very old cell phone, by the way. But then again, this is set way back. I keep forgetting that. And who should be on the phone but his daughter-in-law, Stacy. And she hates to ask him this, but her sitter has canceled, and she's got to go to work, and she wants to know if Mike can watch Kaylee the next day. And of course, he says, whatever you need, and she's afraid that she's imposing on him. What about work? And during in the middle of this conversation, somebody drives up to the ticket booth, and he's just angrily waving at them to go through the window. So obviously, his job is not more important than Stacy and Kaylee.
Yes, in the Ermintrout pyramid of needs,
right.
Kaylee is above stickers, apparently.
That's absolutely right. So even Jimmy could have maybe gotten through that at that particular moment. So then we cut back to Jimmy being back at Sandpiper, and it's dark now, and we see that he's been waiting for the office to close, and he's doing a little dumpster diving, looking for those bags of shredded paper so that he can tape all those pieces back together and find out what it was they were shredding. So you can imagine all of the nastiness that's in a assisted living facility's dumpster. While he's in there digging around, the two bouncers slash orderlies come out having a little chit chat to throw some more trash in there on top of him, and he gets a phone call. And I'm afraid that I did not ever write down this guy's name. This is the lawyer for the firm that represents Sandpiper. Did either of you get his name?
I, I've
No.
got Shuglin and Coakley, which I don't think is right.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's
afraid
definitely an S word. It's an S word.
Shuglet?
Shuglin.
I was too distracted by
Shuglin.
his beard. So I did not catch his name, but the lawyer from the expensive-looking law firm that is
Named Shuglet.
that's contracted
Shuglin.
by Sandpiper calls while Jimmy is in the dumpster. And he's whispering because the orderlies have just barely walked away. And, the guy's like, why are you whispering? Is this a bad time? And he's like, no, I'm at the opera. And he's like, oh, what opera? He's at the Magic Flute. So, anyway, I thought that was interesting.
We got a quick quiz time here.
Oh, sorry.
We're all three in dumpsters, talking to Mr. Shuglin, the infamous lawyer Shuglin, and we all
You
bluff
had
that
me
we're
at
watching
in a dumpster because then I could relate, but I don't know anybody named Shuglet.
You're talking to a lawyer named Shuglin or something like that, and you do the old opera bluff, and he calls you on it and says, "Oh, really? Which opera? Which opera are you going to say, Mike?"
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many that I love.
Mel, you have an
I
opera.
would probably have to go Wolverine versus Gladiator.
Excellent choice.
Good choice.
It's a beautiful one. I love it. The arias are spectacular.
What's your go-to bluff of?
I don't really know any operas. I would have to resort to ballet and throw out something totally stupid like Swan Lake, honestly, if I got caught off guard like that. So, yeah. I'm not as good at Mike as Mike is coming up with stuff like that. I totally want to see that.
I would say La Boheme, but I don't even know if that's an opera, but it sounds like it might be.
I was going to say you're going to give him a phonetic enunciation.
Yes, I'm good. La Boheme.
Yeah,
Just
was
cough
Cats
in
an
the middle
opera?
of it. You won't know.
It was a musical.
Well, see, there you go. Tommy was a rock opera, right? Could I do that? I don't know.
Sure.
But anyway,
There you go.
But Jimmy's more cultured than us, and he talked about the magic flute.
Right. So the lawyer starts talking about how he got this very interesting demand letter that's written on some interesting fabric that he can't quite read. And he's going on and on about it. And Jimmy throws out another great line of the movie, of the show, of let's not fixate on the medium. And the guy suggests that maybe next time he should use 2-ply. Anyway, so while he is still in the dumpster, he gets out of the dumpster after this conversation. And where do any of you actually think in a modern society the actual shredded paper would be? I actually thought this before he got into the dumpster, that it would be in the recycling bin, which is where he finds all the shredded paper. So the whole nastiness of the dumpster was uncalled for. He didn't need to do that. It was in the recycling bin.
It built character, though.
It's nasty. I'd be pretty desperate to get in there. So he takes his spoils back to Chuck, and hopefully he goes and takes a bath first because he was in clean clothes. So he goes back to Chuck's house because there's more room and spreads all of the shredded paper out to start going through it. And he's up all night, and in the morning, Chuck gets up And what are you doing? And then he looks at all of this and he's like, oh, okay, I'll make coffee. And then when Jimmy falls asleep, he starts working on it for him. So it's very sweet.
Yeah, and this was where my favorite quote. This section of the show is where my favorite quote came in when Jimmy was explaining to Chuck where he got. He goes, "Did you
Yes.
break into the nursing home and all that?" And Jimmy explained that, "No, I got it from a dumpster." And Chuck was starting to go on a privacy issue, and he goes, "You can't say it's private if a hobo can use it as a wigwam," which is my favorite.
I'm pretty sure if you opened a legal textbook, that is the exact wording.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so. But
Oh, as far as our operas go, John McGevna has suggested some Wagner. So I didn't think about that. Damn. Those were real operas.
and things I didn't know. Barry is an ex-garbage man, so he was cringing on part of it. He's like,
Yeah.
"You fool! It's in the recycling, you
Yes.
fool!"
Always check and see if there's recycling if you're looking for paper. They're trying to save the environment, you know?
No, I like that. I like that they're willing to rip off elderly people, but they're still eco-conscious.
Absolutely. One must have morals. Really.
There is a line.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
I'm not even going to try to say that Wagner opera name. Did you give that a shot, Mel?
Gotterdammerung. I have no German accent, I'm sorry, but I think it's something around Gotterdammerung.
I believe I
Yeah.
do it as Gotterdammerung, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alrighty, so Act 3, so Chuck was helping Jimmy out, and in his Rain Man-like way, Chuck has assembled a bunch of these documents and ledgers as Jimmy slept.
Am I the only one who, when you saw all that sort of taped together and everything, thought of Batman Returns when Danny DeVito's Penguin presents Christopher Walken with the taped together shredded documents?
Oh, that's excellent. No, that did not come to mind, but totally fits.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
And thank goodness Sandpiper didn't spring for a crosscut shredder, because
I know.
it would have really been bad.
This is why you always use a crosscut shredder, y'all.
Crosscut and then burn it just in case.
Yes. Only way to be sure.
Yep. And so Chuck has reassembled all the things. He's found the smoking gun. And as they're talking through, all of a sudden, as he's saying, "Okay, and here's the next thing we're going to do," and all this, and Jimmy's like, "Us?" And he's like, actually excited that Chuck wants to work with him on something, because we kind of saw at the beginning, it didn't seem like that was on Chuck's super short list to say, "Boy, I just can't wait to practice law with my bro."
Mm-hmm.
But Jimmy gets hold of Kim and starts right off with the sweet talk, so she knows something's up. And he needs her to print off a bunch of stuff from Westlaw, which I am going to assume is some sort of magical legal library thingy.
Sure.
But it's not free. Legal magic is not free, and they've got to charge it to an account. And if she charges it to hers, that's going to be bad. So Jimmy suggests charging it to Vader's, whose number is 1933, which Jimmy points out is the year that Hitler came into power. That was pretty awesome. And finally, Charles, in a moment that I'm a little worried is not going to work out well, said, "Oh, go ahead and use mine."
Yeah.
1868, which is the year that Andrew Jackson was impeached. So maybe Chuck's gonna get
Foreshadowing.
impeached. I don't know.
Yeah, I was getting a
Could
really
be.
bad feeling here. Making me sad.
Yeah. And then there's a conversation about pro bono, and Jimmy assures Chuck that he's very bono, which I thought was pretty cool. And then what we were all waiting for, we get to see Mike and Kaylee together again, because it's always just neat, the scenes Mike with the little girl. And Stacy kind of pulls Mike aside, and she's got her envelope full of the $6,000 for Maddie. And she's like, I didn't know whether to turn it in. It could sure help. Things are tight. What do you think I should do? And Mike says, anything that this does to help you, it's a good thing, and that's what you should do. And then she goes, yeah, it's just a drop in the bucket, though. So my question to both of you, is Stacy working Mike a little bit here or not?
I think so.
I didn't have that thought, but I suppose it's possible.
Yeah. I'm conflicted. I really, really don't want that to be the case, that she's like, well, this is nice, but boy, it'd be nice if some more money came. But so I don't think she's like super actively trying to scam or pressure Mike, but she did make an attempt to make sure he was aware that things aren't great.
Mm-hmm.
Sort
And
of indirectly.
it comes immediately after her opening the door for him to spend time with the
Kaylee.
kid.
Yeah. That's true. Thank y'all for making me think something horrible now.
It's the timing of it that makes it suspicious.
Yes, and she probably thinks, since he's admitted to being a dirty cop, that he has hordes of money stashed away somewhere. Ugh.
And if
Y'all
he
are
doesn't have
breaking
the
my
money stashed away, she knows he's got some questionable morals and maybe could come up with some.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ugh.
Can make them. So don't. Maybe it's just a little of that, Mel.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kelly.
Well, I mean, you could look at it that it's coming from a good place because she's, trying to think of her daughter.
That's true. And hey, if she can get a new car, that's not too bad either.
Did you see her car? She could use an upgrade. Come on.
She could. So could Mike. So could Jimmy. So could
Boy, could
everybody.
Jimmy.
Oh. So I think that takes us to Act 4, the final act. And in this one, we've got the swanky lawyers that Kelly tried to name earlier coming over to Chuck's house.
Shuttlecock, and what was the other one?
Mescapani.
Mescapani and Shuttlecock.
So they're coming over to Chuck's to discuss the case. And they're all super friendly, which automatically puts you on edge. But Jimmy meets them at the road and tells them they've got to take off, leave all their cell phones, et cetera, and so forth, all their electronic equipment in the car. And everybody's looking very skeptical except for the little lead lawyer, who tells them, no, I've heard about this. It's all right. And so they unload all their equipment. They go in the house. And Jimmy leaves them in the dining room while he goes and gets Chuck. And Chuck seems to be very, very nervous about this. And he's all in his three-piece suit. And Jimmy helps him put his jacket on. But he seems very perturbed, very off-center about all of this. And Jimmy gives him a pep talk. And they head on in there. And basically, the guy leads with some story about how awesome Chuck used to be. And Chuck really doesn't seem very comfortable with it. And he acts like he doesn't remember it. Did y'all think he remembered that event, or was just so uncomfortable he didn't want to talk about it? Anybody?
I don't think he remembered it.
Yeah,
I don't think he remembered it, and I think that he also saw it as a tactic.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was also testing him out a little bit too, because he's like, "Oh yeah," and we were all stuck, and then you pulled it together. What was that? What was that you cited, Chuck? And oh well, yeah, never mind, But you can, I think, to a degree, he's trying to mess with Chuck a little bit here because he knows he's.
Well, Chuck ends up sitting there while they give their big spiel, and basically, they're trying to settle. They're saying they don't have much of a case. It basically boils down to, yes, they accidentally overcharged some of those clients to the grand total of $46,000 and some change. And they'll write them a check right now for that 46, and hell, they'll throw in another 46 to cover their expenses, and there you go. Done deal. Oh, and then they ended up rounding it out to an even 100,000. And, everybody's basically like, how do you like them apples? And Jimmy is sort of looking at Chuck, like expecting Chuck to say something, but Chuck never does. He sits there looking very uncomfortable the entire time, and so Jimmy starts into his spiel. And basically, he doesn't think that's a very good deal, and this is where the whole title of the episode comes in. He gives them an invoice that's for syringes from Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, this apparently sets some legal precedent because those syringes came from out of state. So we're talking about interstate commerce, which puts it into whatever this Rico case is. That's about all I understood of that part.
Well, I learned something. Both Nebraska and New Mexico begin with the letter N.
Yes,
so that was
they do. They do, and they're not the same.
It's a solid takeaway.
Yeah. I have it as a note. I wrote it down.
Oh, and thank you. It just scrolled down. Barry told us the name of that lawyer, Rick Schweikart. Okay. Thank you, Barry.
So that's close.
Yes.
Yeah,
not really.
Right
sort
there.
of.
Began with an S.
Yeah. So
first impressions, first letter.
Absolutely. So the lawyer, Jimmy is arguing back and forth with his head lawyer and stating all of this crap, and it goes on with some legalese stuff for a while. And then after having sat there the entire time like a rock, Chuck finally pipes up that they'll settle for 20 mil, which seems to be astronomically high. Jimmy even seems like that's a little high. And the lawyers got to talk about it, and they leave. After which Chuck tries to explain a little bit to Jimmy about why it's so much more than that. And the entire time I'm getting a really bad feeling about all of this. I'm getting very worried. This is a big case. This is big money. And there's just no way that Jimmy's going to get this. We know that. We know that. So how bad is it going to get? Anyway, then we cut to Mike, who is sitting in a vet's office with a little ratty dog that he got from the shelter. And he goes in to see the vet, and it's the vet that stitched him up. So we know Mike's going to the vet to get some extracurricular work to help Kaylee and Stacy.
Work in air quotes.
Yes. So then we cut back to Jimmy, who is returning to Chuck's house after a busy day of chasing mall walkers down. He got 3 more clients, by the way, but boy, do they walk fast. He forgets to bring a box in from the car. Chuck is sitting at the desk working very diligently on this case, and I mean, he's dressed better than we've typically seen him on his space blanket days. And he's just busy working, and he's so distracted that he's carrying a file folder, and he actually wanders out to Jimmy's car, opens up the mailbox, reaches in, gets the clicker for the trunk opener on Jimmy's car, clicks it open, reaches in, gets the box, and turns around, and by this time Jimmy has woken up from his slight nap on the couch and has come to the door and sees that Chuck is standing outside under all of the electromagnetic radiance of the sun and the power lines and everything else without a care in the world. And I have a really bad feeling.
Because there was a thump at the end, because then it kind of cuts, and there wasn't, nobody was in frame at the very end, right?
There was a thump, but Chuck was still standing. I still saw him standing by the car, unless my eyes deceive me, so I wonder if it wasn't Jimmy.
Because it looked like he was dropped whatever he was holding.
Yeah. I thought it looked like that he was standing there still holding the box, but I could be wrong. It flashed by so fast.
Yeah, yeah, and this, I mean, so I thought this was a really good episode. I do like another, and this would be probably an entire show sometime to explore with Mike, because I really would like to hear Mike's do's and don'ts, wills and won'ts. Because when Mike Mike was visiting the criminal veterinarian, he's like, yeah, we just need to know your do's, your don'ts, your wills, your won'ts, and you're going to get him set up. And I did also think Mike was not exactly lavishing a lot of attention and affection on that dog when they were in the waiting room. But I just so many things look like they're going to go bad here.
Yes.
I'm I'm I'm
I'm thinking this is where Saul comes from. This massive, utter failure of his friends and loved ones.
yeah, because I caught just a little bit of a preview as we're getting things set up to do the show, and somehow, at least in the previews for next week, it appears HHM is starting to get involved to get them to settle, and appears Kim may be their ambassador to Jimmy to try and do it. So
Hmm.
all kinds of things I don't want to see happen.
I know. We know it's going to happen. That's the problem because we know he becomes Saul. But this is going to be somewhat painful if this is the event that's going to kick it off. And I kind of feel like that's where we're going. We're seeing really the path of Saul getting ready to be born and Mike venturing down the path that we know that Mike is going to start taking. So, great episode to set that up. What do you think, Mike?
Definitely, and I think that it's fitting that it's going to be something with Chuck, and it, in my opinion, is going to be Chuck selling him out as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think, and that's the part that darn these guys, they got you to start to care about. So you care about you care about Jimmy more than you ever thought you'd care about a Saul Goodman character. New people show up. Chuck, you're kind of pulling for him to get through whatever he's getting through. Kim, real likable, and it really feels like things are getting set up that those two are going to fail Jimmy one way or
Yes.
another, either
They're going to
through
betray him.
competence or betray him. And I had read when Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould were talking about this season, they say, they said we're going to run them through the ringer, and they say, oh boy, the last two episodes, we really, really did, and
Oh,
so it does
yeah.
appear like they are really gearing up to some not good things going to be coming on.
Yeah.
And when this thing started and it was Jimmy McGill, I was like, that's okay. He can be Jimmy McGill for 2 episodes, and then you'll get him to be Saul Goodman, and then and now I'm kind of like I'd be happy with another season of Jimmy. I mean, it's still the journey to Saul, but I kind of don't want to. I like Jimmy. I don't want to see Jimmy go.
I don't want to see Jimmy hurt, and that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to cause his transformation. But this is where such a great point that Mike brought up from the opening of this episode about Chuck not having fought for Jimmy to be part of HHM, and that's just such a good point because by the end of it, you just start getting the feeling that Chuck is going to let him down and turn that case over to HHM and cut Jimmy out of it is kind of how I feel. So that was really great, Mike, that you caught that part in the opening because I didn't really see that. So I think that's great, and I think you're right.
And Jimmy, what?
Nothing, nothing at all.
Um, so John McGebna had kind of flagged, he's kind of echoing our conversation here that both Jimmy and Mike are heading down a dark path, and he thinks Chuck and Kim are going to sell him out, and Saul emerges.
Yeah,
And I
unfortunately,
think
I
that's
agree.
that stupid code somehow that's going to. And John McGevna in the Q&A kind of mentioned that may be the little piece of leverage HHM needs to get a hold of enough of this to cause trouble.
Yeah, and it made me wonder, of course, I'm wondering this too soon. We've got 2 more episodes in the season to see, but what happens after all of this with Chuck? If during all of Breaking Bad that Chuck was really back at HHM and was just out of Jimmy's life or Saul's
That
life
that
at
was
that
sort of
point.
my next question. That
Yeah.
we can kind of see where this is going. Where do you think the Chuck and Vader are in the timeline of Breaking Bad?
I feel like they're still out there doing their evil.
I'm fairly certain Vader's in a TIE fighter that got kind of blown off the Death Star during the last trench run, and so he's out circling there.
Yeah.
I think Chuck. I think Chuck is in care. Is that he is in some sort of treatment facility, is during the Breaking Bad time. But I gotta imagine Howard's still around, being irritating to Saul.
Well, at that point, they're not going to be working in the same circles anymore. So, but I'm sure I like to think that Saul took a moment out of his day every once in a while to go over there and give Howard a hard time.
Yeah,
So,
any opportunity to poke him would be.
yeah. Yeah, what I'm really curious about is what happens to Kim. So, because
Yeah,
he's
me
exhibited
too.
that he truly, really cares about Kim, and I'm not sure that Kim really reciprocates to the level that Jimmy does. So,
I think she
anyway,
really likes him, but
yeah,
likes him.
yeah,
And, so we'll see.
yeah. It's sad. We ended in a sad place, and we've got 2 more
Yes, we.
episodes left.
You know it's not going to go anywhere good.
No, it's not. I'm not sure that we're going to find a lot of humor the next 2 episodes, but hopefully they'll throw us a bone here and again. I just
Maybe
got a
there's
bad feeling about it.
maybe the land crab mascot has some sort of issue that Jimmy needs to come help, and we'll be okay. But
Yes.
yeah, I think things are going to get dark.
Yeah.
But it's been very interesting to watch, and it's not maudlin for the sake of being maudlin. It's just good storytelling. So
Yeah.
but
We
yeah,
we didn't get any
I don't
mention of the Kettlemans, but we can't have everything.
know.
That was the
They've got
only thing about this episode that I have a little bit of a complaint about.
Yeah.
Being an OG Kettlehead.
That's right. Yeah, we've got to hope. I hope she breaks him out of that minimum security thing and is keeping him in the basement or something like that in season 2. But we'll
Yep.
see.
We'll see.
All righty, folks. Well, on that note, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Mike, Mel, thanks for hanging out again,
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
and
And
thanks
after this
everybody for listening.
uplifting,
And
sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say after this uplifting episode, everyone go have sweet dreams.
That's right. Have a happy time, and think about your do's and don'ts and wills and won'ts before you go to sleep.
That's
So
right.
we will catch you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Night.
Good night.